I just was able to watch the second interview that you did, the second episode, and yeah, it triggered some thoughts in me, so I will share them with you. The first is that I think we should make a difference between forgiveness, or let's say non-forgiveness, and assertiveness. Um, I have a few friends who have been in very abusive relationships, sometimes for years, one of my friends for decades. She was beaten up by her life partner, physically, psychologically abused, all these things. And at the beginning you feel that there's something good in the person, you can change the person, you can make the good come out and so on. And maybe that's why you stay at the beginning. But it just keeps on getting worse. It doesn't change. And then little by little you start to feel that you cannot get out because of fear, because you're told that you're getting killed, that your children will suffer, that they will get killed, all these kind of things. So in that situation, to just recognize that there's something really wrong and that it's not okay that the person is hurting you, is abusing you, has nothing to do in my sense with forgiveness or not forgiveness. It's just we need to have a healthy assertiveness where you're able to say this is not okay and I'm walking away from it. Either walking away or resist or whatever. So I think it's a very important distinction to make, because for lots of my friends that I know who had been through such experience, the difficult part is they weren't too nice in a certain way. And they always try to find the good, and that's why you're staying and you're taking the abuse and you try to find why you're guilty and why did you trigger the person and so on, while it's not you. If you're interested in that kind of question, you can have a look. There's lots of videos on YouTube on the pervert narcissist personality. If you're really in relationship with a pervert narcissist, just get out. Forgiveness and all these things will not really have an effect. That's the first thought. A second thought is on the art of forgiveness. Be it forgiveness of others or forgiveness about yourself, which he also raises in the interview. I feel that what we may cultivate is not so much the art of forgiveness, but the art of not condemning. Why first condemn and then forgive afterwards what you have condemned? So why not just start by being less judgmental in what is happening? Less judgmental also means have a kind of objective view of what is going on, which means that I can recognize if somebody does bad things to me. If I'm saying you're doing something bad to me, it's not that I'm unforgiving or that whatever. I may understand the reasons why you're doing it. I may take measures to protect myself from it. I may take measures to try to change the situation. But basically I'm just acting with the situation as it is. That's what you have in martial arts. If somebody attacks you, you just have to respond in the best way possible. And if your emotions interfere with it, if anger comes, fear comes, all these things come, you will not be efficient in appropriately reacting to the situation. So if somebody is not very skilled fighter and you're more skilled than him, you may in a very gentle way be able to control him. If it's getting more intense, okay, then let it get more intense. But even the most intense it gets, there is no need of being emotionally or in any way like this involved. What has to happen has to happen. A little like, I don't like it very much, but whatever, like in the Mahabharata, like when Krishna is telling Arjuna to go and fight. Let the fighting happen, karma yoga. The results will be what the results are, but you just try to do what is correct. But the point is, so the attitude is not to foster an art of forgiveness, but rather like an art of not condemning in the first place. I think it saves a lot of time. A related point that came to my mind is when he's talking about forgiveness, like forgiving ourselves, is if we see things rather in not condemning in the first place. And life is just a procedure of learning. You just learn. If I fail an exam, it's not like, oh, I have to forgive myself that I have failed the exam. It's just I failed. I was not prepared enough, or um, I was not up to that level at that point. So I can try again. I can train again. I can try to improve myself. I can look at it in a different way. I can move on. But where does guilt come in here? For me, there is no guilt. If you really try to do your best at every given moment, that's the best you could do. And then the question is just maybe how can you do better in the future? If you did some stupid stuff which created suffering for others, how can you repair to the best of your ability? But so I think if you take that perspective of just not condemning at the beginning, but just seeing life as a learning experience, then everything is just a question of what did I learn, not how guilty am I and how have I to get rid of my guilt. Then there was a last aspect which I found maybe interesting to ponder, is that he emphasizes that forgiveness is most of all for yourself, if you like, for your own well-being. I don't completely agree, because letting go, yes, the fact that you let go of certain things, that is what certain experiences that happen, you just let go. Which also one little thing I don't completely agree. You may have a very traumatic experience, having experienced deep trauma, having maybe post-traumatic stress disorder. And this may not only be related to the fact that you don't forgive. If you have been sent as a soldier to war and you have been exposed to very horrible situations that happen to you, to your friends, that you have maybe inflicted on others, it's not only a question of forgiving. It's just like you will hear the sound on TV of a gun and you will get trigger response of panic attacks, you have nightmares at night. So I think things that happen to us sometimes, or which are done to us, it's not only because we don't forgive them, that they are difficult. But I think that letting go, yes, is definitely something we have to practice. But forgiveness comes, you forgive somebody. It's a relationship. It's not like if in your mind you're like, oh, I forgive him. No. Forgiveness is if somebody does something wrong or you do something wrong and you go and see the person and acknowledge to the person, you say, I'm sorry, I did something which was not correct. Can you forgive me for that? So for me, basically forgiveness is not a personal thing. It is something in relationship to others. And the personal thing, if you take like forgive yourself, okay, it's like you're talking to yourself like as another person. But like in your head, forgiving somebody for something, for me that is more like letting go. Forgiving is like if somebody asks forgiveness or you're asking forgiveness, and so it also depends on what is the reaction of the person. And there again, like if somebody is just acting in a mean way or in a foolish way, and then just ask for forgiveness, I don't think that it's just like you should say, oh yeah, I forgive you. Does the person really recognize what he or she did? Does the person really want to make a change? Is there really a growth in consciousness? If these things are there, then you can say, okay, yeah, let's move on. As long as it is not there, and as long as the person is just seeking forgiveness because they actually don't want to do the work, they just want you to tell them, okay, you're forgiven. We had that in the Catholic Church at a certain point, like where you could buy your forgiveness, like do something and then just confess, then go on a crusade or give some money and God will forgive you. That was just a way of buying your peace of mind. It's not about real forgiveness. So I think this aspect, I mean, we could talk about a lot. It's very important for relationships. It's important for societies as a whole. Like a genocide happens, uh, and then we have to move on. Yeah, maybe there's some forgiveness to be done, but how can those survivors of those families where everybody got killed, how can they forgive if on the other side there is not a recognition of the horror that has been done and of the injustice that has been done? So I think it's a deep question.
And actually, you were the one who made me read the Wikipedia entry on forgiveness, because I was really wondering, where does it actually come from? Like, what is the etymology of the word? How was it used? And I found it interesting that, for example, in the Jewish perspective, well, it's very much something that you have to. It's an interpersonal thing. Only humans can forgive other human beings. Even God cannot forgive you something. He can only forgive something against him, but he cannot forgive what another human being has not forgiven you if you have done him wrong. So that reminded me of a remark that I gave you like a couple of days ago about the Our Father. When we're talking about um, like the depths, like they told you that in the German version it is like release us from our depths in the same way as we release others from our depths. And I was telling you that in German that was the words which were used instead of sin. And so I found it a great thought because it's um, we have to make the effort to try to forgive. And as much as we may be able to, in as much also like we may be forgiven on a higher level. And if you dig deep into all this, it's another way of seeing we're one with everything. So the more we take away the barriers to this oneness, and forgiving is one way of putting away these barriers, well, the more we become one actually with the divine.